welcome back to another episode of Office Hours Career Paths for PhDs. I am excited to share just another incredible, amazing, insightful guest that we have today, a PhD who was brave enough to take the leap and jump out into the industry. So I am going to welcome Dr. Brandeis Hill Marshall. She's the founder and CEO of DataedX Group. She's also the author of Data Conscience, Algorithmic Siege on Our Humanity. No, well, thank you so much for just making time in your schedule. And so you and I connected on LinkedIn, I want to say like a year ago, but you were in the process of planning this major conference. And so I was like, I need to wait until she has done the conference, decompress from the conference so that we can then have this conversation. So I saw that it was amazing. You just had a great group of women there. And so I'm happy that we're able to have you here. So let's just kind of jump right in. Let's talk about, what prompted you to pursue the PhD?
Ooh. You just get in it. I mean, no chasers. I love it. So I pursued the PhD because education was so important to my parents and me, right? By default. Education can't be taken away from you. I was told that ever since I was a wee babe. Every time I wanted to do something, it was like, well, you might need to have a degree for that. So pursuing the PhD for me was about, I wanted to get through as much school as possible so I didn't have to go back to school. I don't know about anybody else. Both of my parents finished their either undergraduate or master's degrees while I was growing up. So I saw them go to school, right, after work and during the summer and things like that. So I was like, yeah, I need to school. I need to all the way school and get done with school. So I was like, the furthest I can go in school is PhD. So I'm going to get that. And then, of course, I finished my undergrad during the dot-com boom bust. And I saw the tea leaves before the industry saw the tea leaves. I was like, this is not going to boom for much longer. I need to make sure I have a check coming in because I am not going back and living with my parents.
Right.
So I need to figure something else out. And I knew that undergraduate education wasn't enough for me. I was like, I got the basic concepts, but I don't really know computer science like I think I should. In order to be of benefit to a company. So let me just go over here and study some more.
Okay. So now you get into the program, and what are you thinking your career is going to look like once you're in your program?
Girl, I had no idea. I mean, I was a McNair scholar, so I had an idea of how to get into graduate school, and I understood the process of getting into grad school, but the whole grad schooling, I had no clue what it was about. I didn't understand what was important in grad school. Like, grades are important in grad school, trust. But what's really important is that thesis, if you're at the master's level, or that dissertation at the PhD level. Like, the rest of it is all preparing you for that work product. Like, that's your deliverable, right? And no one really in my orbit had that understanding. So I went to graduate school thinking it was like undergrad.
Okay.
And I quickly found out it was not.
Yeah.
Ooh, fix my glasses.
Just our glasses on that one.
Yeah, just the glasses on that one. And then I was like, okay, I need to recalibrate myself and understanding, because not only was I in school, I was also a teaching assistant. So as I said, I went to graduate school a minute ago. So I was grading programs that were on 3.5 discs.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I was carrying around 50, 75, 100, 3.5s.
Yeah, the floppy disk. Yeah.
That's what I was doing. Okay. Early days of learning management systems, right? So I'm trying to figure out WebCT, I'm dating myself, and all the other platforms that no longer exist or that were bought out by other platforms that we now use today, right? So I was like, I got a TA, I got to go to class, I got to do research, I'm supposed to do all these 3 things, and the pay was crap.
Yeah.
So what was to do? How was to do this? So it was a lot. It was a lot to try to figure out. Other people were having the same problems and conversations, but they might have known somebody that had finished their master's or finished their PhD or someone in their family. And so then it just became about trying to find community in graduate school in order to talk through some of the large and the small pebbles in order to get through the program, like qualifying exams, like that professor that you're like, what did that professor say? Another thing that the professor say is on the test, what's going on? How do you create your dissertation topic? Like all these things where now there's helpmates, there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's organizations that exist now. But when I was at school, there was like a dearth. You got to just find somebody that know and just latch on and hold on.
Yeah. Now, at what point in your program did a career outcome start to formalize, crystallize? What was that? When did that happen for you?
That happened probably about 2/3 of the way through.
Okay.
After I had a couple of summer internships at research labs, a couple of people that I knew started to graduate and started to go into corporate or government labs or research labs. And that's when I realized that that wasn't for me. I didn't like that type of environment. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel like I really fit in the corporate space or the research lab space. It was a little too stiff for me. I wanted to have fun and laugh, and people weren't doing either one. So what I was really good at was teaching because I had been a TA for pretty much my whole graduate career. So I was like, well, teaching seems like I'm good at that, so I'll do that. And I don't have to do stuff in the summer, and I get to possibly choose where I go. And oh boy, I was wrong about that too. We'll get to that, I'm sure. And I was like, and then I could be, a role model. I could be a model. I never had a Black teacher, so maybe I can be someone's first Black instructor inside of this world of computing. So I was like, I'll do that. That seems impactful. That seems purposeful. That seems like something that would make sense for me to do. I felt like a purpose and a mission behind it. Oh boy.
Now, you having that revelation, which is always great, which I think about during my undergraduate years, I was so happy that I did internships because that helped me realize that the thing I thought I wanted to do, I definitely didn't want to do. And but when I made it to the doctoral level, internships didn't even cross my mind. Like I wasn't even aware.
Really?
And I think maybe it's because I come out of comm studies that's just not something that we do. So, it's not something that most of us do. So maybe just the field was something that was different, but it does help to just branch out there while you still have the covering of, being a student to figure out what you want to do. So once you have this revelation that, okay, definitely don't want to do that. I want to go teach. What next?
Ooh, then it was a matter of doing the comparison game, which is where I went wrong. But the comparison game, which is, okay, people are graduating. What do they graduate with? If they are going to be an assistant professor, what do they have in their portfolio, which is publications. And I had no publications. I didn't have my first publications until 5 years into graduate school.
Okay.
And it was a paper I wrote by myself without my advisor because I was so frustrated. I was like, everyone around me has papers published and I don't. Like, I need papers published in order to do what I want to do. So I was looking for places in order to publish. How do I get my name out there? How do I get what I'm doing out there? I was looking at the interwebs and how rank algorithms were working inside of all of these search engine platforms. There was no conversation about that then. A lot of conversation about it now, though. But yeah, so I just was trying to compare myself to other people. And that's when I realized just how far, I guess, behind is the best word for it, ill-equipped that I was in order to be an assistant professor. And then I started seeking other people who were assistant professors and seeing what they were doing, what was important to move forward and to be an assistant professor. Where do I need to go? So I realized quite quickly that going into a institution and being a professor wasn't something that I was ready for either.
Okay.
That I needed to be a postdoc. I needed to be under someone's tutelage to kind of learn the ropes, ask some questions, and then be able to move into a faculty role. Again, Lord.
Well, we'll talk through that. So you shared just some things ahead of our call, but I'm curious to learn. So you have the conversations about, what you should be doing in terms of postdoc, assistant professor. You did a postdoc.
Yep.
What was that postdoc experience like for you?
The postdoc experience was very lonely.
Okay.
I thought that the postdoc experience would be one in which I was being groomed to be a faculty member at that institution or another institution. And it was really about me finding my research agenda and producing papers from my dissertation. So I learned to do stuff on my own, which again, as I look back, it was probably very gaslighty because other people were not having that experience, right? I was just kind of off in my own little corner. I would kind of be brought out when they wanted, a Black voice, or they brought me out when they wanted to connect with a minority serving institution and wanted to know if I knew anybody, like all Black people know each other. I mean, when you have a PhD, you typically do know them all because there's not that many. But at the same time, I was like, y'all trash. What are y'all doing? What is this? What you talking about? And so my experience was one where I learned a lot. I learned that there was a game to be played. And I spun that gaslighting type of situation to, oh, okay, there's a game. Oh, okay. Oh, bet there's a game. Oh, my Virgo brain was like, okay, you want to play a game with me. You gonna know my name by the time I'm done with this game. And they did.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. So I went ahead and did work through that postdoc and collected that little bit of coin, reached out to another department that was looking for faculty that needed that type of expertise that I had in databases. And then I went ahead and pursued that faculty position. And then I wind up earning it and then became an assistant professor. And it was interesting, my postdoc advisor, when I finally got another, only had a couple of meetings with him, but when I got the meeting with him and I told him that I would be transitioning to this other department as an assistant professor, his response was pretty much like, oh, well, good, because your postdoc is going to end in a couple of months and I have no funding for you. I was just like,
didn't know that it was going to end?
He was like, yeah, it's 2 years. It was 2. That's what we agreed upon. So yeah, it was gonna end. So I'm glad you found something. That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. And I'm thinking to myself,
wow.
Okay. All right.
So it's good that you were proactive then.
And that's what I learned in my postdoc, is that you have to be proactive. So I was very proactive when I got to the assistant professor position. And I just continued to be proactive because I realized, as I said, in my postdoc experience, that this industry isn't about ready to try to give me the playbook or give me the blueprint or give me anything. I have to fight for it. So I was like, all right, I'm a small chick, but listen, I will scrap with the best of them. I'm going to get what I'm going to get. Yeah, I will not be denied. So
Okay.
that's what happened.
Now, so you do your postdoc for 2 years,
Yeah.
then you have your assistant professor position. How long were you there?
I was there for 6 years as an assistant professor. So I started in 2008 and then took tenure April the 4th of 2014. I remember the date. Woo! Oh, when I took tenure, I was jumping on tables, I was dancing. I literally had my laptop in one hand with playing music, going up and down the halls. People were just like, what is she doing? I was like, I just took tenure. I don't care. I'm going to celebrate myself by myself. I don't care.
Now, tell me, you have an interesting expression or way that you describe it. So most will say, "Oh, I earned tenure," but I hear you say you took tenure. Kind
I
of tell
took
me
it.
what's that difference? What happened there?
So earned tenure means that, to me, it means that you feel grateful that they, certified you as being worthy to have the promotion and the tenure at associate professor level.
Mhm.
No, I fought.
Okay.
I fought for it. I was one of the only, no, I was the only woman in the department
Wow.
at the assistant professor level that was doing research. I had a terrible time getting some of the graduate students that I acquired um, fought me tooth and nail, wanted me to do the work for them. I had a couple of those that I had to release back into the general pool. Like, I ain't doing your work I got the degrees. I'm not doing your work.
Right.
I had several talk back to me. Um, I had a terrible time getting funding. Um, I was not being put on grants with other faculty, um, like other faculty of different genders and different complexions were. Um, and so I fought. So I took it.
Yeah.
I mean, I said lots of words directly to my department chair and to the dean of the college.
Mhm.
I distinctly remember one question that I asked the dean in a very small meeting. Had about 6 or 7 people, and I said, "How am I being counted by this academic unit?" And he just looked at me like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm a Black woman and American. So how am I being counted? Am I being counted 3 times? Because I'm the only Black woman as a professor.
Uh-huh.
So I'm uniquely identifiable. So how am I being counted?" He had nothing to say, and I was like, "That's my point. You can't talk to me about you being fair." And, it was a whole conversation about we want to do things for the junior faculty, and I asked him that very poignant question about how am I being counted. And he couldn't answer me
Yeah.
because he never thought about the fact that I was uniquely identifiable just by the fact of my physicality in this whole college of, you know I don't know, 200 or so faculty, and there was 2 Black women, and I was the only one on tenure track,
Wow.
and no other Black woman had taken tenure in the establishment of that whole academic unit that was about 50 years old.
How did you navigate that experience? So, taking tenure obviously is not an easy process.
Right.
Neither is earning tenure. So, earning tenure is
Right.
already tough. Taking tenure feels like there's more work involved there, not just the physical work, but also this emotional labor.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about how you navigated that. What got you through that time?
What got me through every other stage of my computer science career was like, I'm going to do this in spite of all of the non-help that I'm getting.
Got it.
Like, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm
Okay.
still going to do it. Even if you don't tell me how to do it, I'm still going to figure it out. Like, there's things that I'm going to do. that you can't deny me the access. So it was very much a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of emotional turmoil. So how I got through it was Fridays, I didn't come into the office. So one of my white male colleagues talked about, oh yeah, research. I do it 1 day a week. That's research day where I don't come into the office. He had young children and things. So he said, yeah, and it's kind of good because it gives, I can spend time with my kids and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that. So every Friday I wouldn't be in the office, or I choose another day of the week depending on the semester and my schedule. I also did my best in order to write papers that were important to me that I knew that they were going to be published. So the conferences that I submitted papers to, maybe they weren't the A tier, maybe they were B tier, and then I would try for the A tier, right? I just whatever way possible that I could strategize to make myself in the best position possible, that's what I was going to do. So I tried to work my way through it. It got me to a certain place that was good, but it didn't get me over the edge. Actually, there was another white woman professor in my department who actually was like, hey, you're brilliant. Come and work with this project with me. Put me on a grant. That really propelled me. She basically sat down and basically taught me some of her game. And that is what catapulted me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to find allies when they're there and it's like they're willing to work with you, because it can be quite isolating to be in a space where you're the only and you're having to do work that's already tough for people that don't look like you. And then you have to kind of go through that. So you took tenure, you're dancing in the hallways and you're celebrating. What next for you? What was your next step?
I turned in my resignation. No one see that coming. Everybody's like, you did what?
Okay.
Yes, Jasmin. So while I was in the tenure cycle, I had already put together my tenure package. And so I went ahead and submitted my application to a number of other different schools.
Okay.
Because, again, I had a network of people now that were assistant professors, associate professors, some of them full professors. They were just kind of in this like loose group of conversation. So that was the advice. Hey, if you're already going to put together your tenure package, you might as well shop it around to other institutions.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen with tenure. Okay, makes sense. It's a cost benefit analysis to me. Got it. So I wind up wanting to leave the institution anyway, because I didn't see myself earning or taking full at that institution. So I shopped it around. I wind up having an interview and then signing with another institution. So once I had earned tenure, I sent my tenure letter to this institution. So then, because one of my criteria for moving institution was that I'm going to come with tenure. Because I was like, I'm not doing this mess again. I know I'm done with this right here. So, I got the tenure letter that I received. I then sent to the new institution. They then approved my tenure, put together a startup package, and then about a month after my tenure had been announced, I then turned in my letter of resignation and said, I'm out.
What was that like?
What was it like? Girl, it was freeing. What you talking about? I was like, I don't have to sit in these meetings and look at a room full of portraits of white men surrounding me. What? This is wonderful. I was like, yeah, there's nothing y'all can say. They like half baked it. There anything we could do? I was just like, y'all already know.
Okay.
I was like, no, there's nothing y'all could do. Because I had to fight for my pre-tenure review. Right? That happens in the third year. Supposed to have a pre-tenure review. It was one page with like 7 bullets.
Wow.
I was just like, I had to fight for everything. No, I'm good. Like,
Okay.
and you in the north and it's cold? No, I'm good. Like, deuces. Bye,
So
y'all.
once you took the deuces to that institution with your tenure letter in hand,
Yep.
what were some of your next experiences?
So the next experiences, it went from, oh my God, I'm so excited to be at this institution because I'm going to be with my people, to, oh my God, I'm at this institution and I'm with my people, and my people are wretched. And so, internalized white supremacy is a real thing for our community. And I'm just going to be very frank about it. I'm not going to mention the place. I'm not going to mention a whole bunch of the professional abuse I experienced, because that's going to take us onto a pit and a hole that is not what this conversation should be about. But what I will say is this, is that I realized quickly that I was too north for the South.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Akron, Ohio. Just a little town that has a couple of famous people from it. You might know one or two of them, right? And we just don't mess around.
Mm-hmm.
We straight shooters. That's just how we are. And my ability to do Southern hospitality was not good.
Okay.
And I came from a PWI background.
Mm-hmm.
So I follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
My dad worked for the IRS. So money conversations aren't something that I have a fear of.
Right.
Well, let's talk about the money. How did money flow? All those things. It was all hush hush, close to the vest. We can't talk about it. We can't do this. We got to do that. Got to do stuff for the culture, for the community. And I was like, hold up, but you pimping out the culture, you pimping out the community.
Mm-hmm.
How is this doing this? Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. Let me explain. What is this? So my experience at the second institution was one where I was blindsided, gobsmacked at just the utter brilliance in the place that was being muted, including my own. And I was just like, all these people are so awesome. Why don't they have like their own like thing? Like, why aren't they promoted like this, that? And that really struck with me. And then I just was like, okay, they don't want that. You can't be bigger than the place. So I said, okay.
So no one can be bigger than the group, is what you
said. No one can be bigger than the group. And I was like, okay, I understand that now. I did not before. I understand that now. And so I got to move different.
Okay. Now, what was the moment where you realized that you were going to leave academia?
The moment. So I have like this R&B song in my head. Y'all know the song. Okay. Y'all know the song. I don't gotta say the song. Y'all know the song. The moment was, it was probably one of the most painful moments. I was chair of the department at the time, and the college administrator at the time decided to come to the meeting in order to express the transition of the department, because I was being removed as department chair. And I conducted that meeting with the college administrator there. And then the college administrator tried to close out my meeting.
Okay.
And not on my watch. This is my meeting.
Okay.
it was my meeting. I was department chair. I had not been removed yet. That was what she was announcing to the department, but it was still my meeting because she was on my turf. She was in my department, right? I wasn't in her office. She was basically in my office, right? So I then decided to close the meeting by thanking the department for all the work they had done. And it was a small department, about 7 of us. So I thanked each of them for all that they had put into the department, thanked the admin that had done fantastic work while I was chair. Yeah, I closed out the meeting, girl. Administrator got up and walked out. So I closed the meeting. And then
wait, did you close it or did you shut it down? Because it sounds like
I shut it down and left no crumbs. Okay. I left no crumbs.
Okay.
And on that meeting. And so it was that moment I was like, ooh, this is, I don't know if I can do this for much longer. And then about an hour later, there was a memo from that administrator's office to the entire community at the institution, letting everyone know that I was no longer department chair. And I said, who do this? And I said, oh, okay, we go.
Wow.
Oh, you think you going psychologically, handicap me? Oh, okay. And that's the moment I was like, I'm going to have to get out. But I knew for sure that I was not going to leave before both of them left.
Okay. Okay, I feel like there's so much here that we'll have to have some tea and talk about some things.
We can talk about some of the things, but
we'll talk about some of those things offline, of course. But
of course.
Okay.
But
now,
yes.
What you have all this experience,
Right.
You took tenure at one institution, you came into another with tenure, you were ultimately, department chair at an institution. What about entrepreneurship was the next step for you? Why not pursue another opportunity at another institution?
For me, I felt like everything that I was doing was outside the box. And I kept getting pushback. I kept getting muted. I kept going, not right now, or ghosting me. Oh, that was really, the ghosting. Oh, the ghosting in academia was huge at both institutions. And about 2 to 3 years later, it would come back around. I was right. Then they'll be tapping me. Hey, could you, Dr. Marshall, could you come? And I'll be like, y'all, I'm about ready to give y'all Beyonce fingers. What are y'all asking me for? So entrepreneurship for me was like, I want a place where I am not muted.
Okay.
And since y'all can't seem to see the vision like I see the vision, and y'all can't seem to trust me, even though I have a record of me being the bomb.com and me being the HBIC, y'all don't want to recognize, then fine, I'll just do it myself.
Okay.
I'll just go my own way. And people started to ask me to speak. People started asking me to consult on things. People wanted my thought leadership. I was like, all right, let's go.
So I want to jump in here. How did you get from, I'm leaving to all of a sudden opportunities coming in? What happened in between time for that work to start to come in?
It was me getting on social media. So because I was muted in my workplace, I made the way that I expressed myself on social media. And at the time it was the Bird app. Because that's when the Bird app was popping. Now it's not. But I would express my thoughts there. And that's where people started to be like, hey, who is she? I like what she's saying, and then I would get emails on the work email for things. And I would start to do speaking engagements. I was doing them for free because I didn't know any better. And then someone said, well, we'll pay you X amount. I was like, wait, pay me? Remember, I told you, my dad worked for the IRS. So money, I was like, oh, okay, I can earn money doing it? Oh, let's go, bet. Then that was it. It was on and popping. And after that, it was like, so what's the honorarium? What's the honorarium?
Yeah.
What's the honorarium? And then the honorarium needed to be at a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point. I was like, okay, $500 is cute.
But
And I
bills
was
must
like,
be paid. Life must be lived.
yes, but
Mm-hmm.
$500 ain't nothing to y'all. Because then I would start to look up who was asking me to speak and realizing what their pay was. And I was like, okay, so if you're earning 200K, why can't I get 5K?
Right. Right.
Make the math.
Yeah.
Because I am a computer science person, I'm a data person. So you need to make the math. Why are you going to offer me $500 or zero when I'm the one bringing in all the IP, when I'm bringing in all the goodness and the gems and dropping everybody's like, oh, she said that. Oh, that made sense. Oh, that's relatable. She said it in a snackable way where I can digest it and understand it. She's really good at XYZ. That's what the comments I was getting. I was like, yeah, no, you need to not do the $500. I'm going to need a real check to pay some bills.
Now, how did you get to the company name DataedX? How do we get there? So it obviously makes sense
Yeah.
with your background, but I love
Yeah.
to learn what informed the company formation.
For me, I wanted something that was about data education because I was moving away from data science, which
Okay.
is what a lot of people, especially on the Bird app, knew me for, was data science education. But I started moving away from data science, started moving just to data because data is in every industry. So data education, so that's data ed.
Mhm.
And then the X was the X factor, and that's essentially me. It's the human condition. I bring in that flavor, that sauce, that je ne sais quoi, right? I drizzle it over everything. And it tends to be about Black people. So I didn't want to put Black in the name because I already knew that society would have a problem with that.
Mhm.
So I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and just say DataedX Group. And so if there's more people that come along, then that would be the group part.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, typically just go by DataedX and just hit them with the data.
And so, in addition to the speaking, what other services do you offer under your company?
So outside of speaking, I do consulting for a range of organizations. Sometimes it is short workshops,
Mhm.
helping companies and their workers understand that they are data people and what does that mean and their responsibility on that. That tends to be most of the other services. And I am, of course, have Black Women in Data, which is a separate like stream under DataedX, which is all about the promotion amplification of Black women in the data industry, since we only account for 1%. And I want us to account for 13% of the industry by 2040. So yeah, speaking, consulting, and then Black women in data. Those are the three things that DataedX Group does.
Tell me more about the Black women in data because you recently had a summit that was last October, I believe. Kind of tell me
Yeah.
what prompted you to bring that group together.
Well, I've been wanting to do a summit for Black women in data for the longest time, probably about 3 or 4 years. But
Mhm.
the pandemic hit and then all other things happened. What I wanted to bring together were women that were experienced and seasoned to come together to actually invest in ourselves.
Okay.
Because what I noticed for myself and for other women in my circle was that we were mentors to the younger babies. I call them babies, college students,
Mhm.
the babies. We're the mentors to them, but we don't have any mentorship and
Mm.
we don't talk to each other. So we're doing what our parents have done, right? It's like one on one advising. That is exhausting.
Yeah.
And we all are exhausted. The pandemic was exhausting. And
Mhm.
so I wanted an event and a gathering of Black women where they can unmask and they could have real conversations. And they didn't have to worry about what they said because there's going to be no babies around.
Mhm.
They're not there with little ducklings behind them. Yeah, what interests you? And it wasn't going to be, one of those, tech swap meets, recruiting sessions. I call them swap meets, but
Yeah.
recruiting sessions. None of that. I wanted it to be more elevated in the conversation, more grown woman talk, because that's not something that I'd ever seen, not something I had ever experienced. So everything that a tech conference I had been to I did the opposite.
Okay.
So it was basically one track. The food was popping, no hard, crusty pastries with the bran muffin. And every time I say it, everybody started laughing. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we've been. Yeah.
Those conferences, I'm not doing that. It wasn't going to be in a hotel, so it wasn't going to be hotel food. It was going to be a space where you could actually have conversation and connect. And the companies that are part of the Black Women in Data Summit, who sponsor, they are there more as a headhunting type of conversations
Okay.
versus recruiting conversations.
Okay.
Because it's really about, each of these Black women are bosses. They're managers, they're directors, they've led groups, they're leading groups. They're the only one doing the data organization, concepts, right? So they're already coming with an expertise. That means that the companies have to match that energy. And can they match that energy? So that's why I wanted to bring it together, was because there is this notion that once you've been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years, that somehow you don't care about upskilling. And that's a falsehood. That your expertise needs to be disseminated to the younger generation because that's all that you're really good for. That is crazy. But there is growth and career and professional development that we want as Black women, even when we've been in that workforce and in that industry for a number of years. And how do we have conversation with each other and connect with each other in meaningful ways? And then how do we lift each other up?
Now, what's your transition been like from academia to entrepreneurship? Because it seems like you hit the ground running. You were like, oh, I'm out. Oh, business, speaking, summit. We'll get into the book. So tell me, what was it? How were you able to transition what appears to be so successfully?
Well, I'm still transitioning out of academia as of now. So I'm, it's all about the money. So if the money wasn't mathing, I needed to, keep the plantation job. So I
feel the trauma through the interviews, the screen here. But
through the plantation job. So the way I've done it is I figured it out along the way. I just try stuff. I'm open to trying things. And that is how I think I've been successful, is that I just try it. If it doesn't work, then I try something else. Or I try it multiple times. And if multiple times it doesn't work, okay, this isn't working. Let me stop acting like it's going to work, because that's insanity. Let me just shift, right? And it was a point where I realized I needed a team. I needed at least a virtual assistant. And I struggled for a long time to figure that out. How am I going to pay for that? And I went through my own turmoil over paying somebody for some things. I felt guilty about that. I needed help, and I felt guilty about needing help, and then being able to articulate the help that I need, and delegating was hard. I said, I got to try it, because what I'm doing right now ain't working. I need to sleep. I need to relax. And so that happened about 2021 of getting a virtual assistant. And then at the end of 2021, I wind up getting a coach. Okay. So I met with a coach weekly in order to help me just keep me accountable. The accountability coach, just keeping me accountable for what I say I'm going to do, so I show up for myself. Okay. And so I think that's what's been helping me be so successful, is the fact that I just try. And I share it online. I mean, you can go back to any of the platforms and pretty much see, oh, she tried to do these posts. They didn't work. But she kept posting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I've learned, that you have to give yourself grace to make mistakes or to not do things the way you wanted to do them. Because I hate to always use mistakes, because sometimes it's like you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
when something happens that you didn't expect and it has unintended consequences, you have to give yourself to, grace to first learn from it. Don't just ignore it, but learn from it and move forward. But also being okay with just trying different things, because the PhD, if you pursue the PhD, you have this innate desire to just learn and explore and just try new things. That shouldn't stop with the academic research. That can
Right.
continue and flow into your professional life.
Yeah.
Now, how did you find time to write a book during this time? Let's start.
I don't know. I look back on that and I don't know how I found time. As a PhD, what we're good at is procrastination. So I am very good at procrastination.
Yeah.
And also as a PhD, what we're really good at is putting together a plan. So we'll have a plan that we'll completely ignore. That's what that means.
True.
Yeah. So I put together the book because I divided it out into, like, I need to get something done every month.
Okay.
And then I also decided very early on, I need accountability for this. So I created a newsletter that I was going to write what was going on in my book writing journey every month. So I directly tied myself to producing a book because every month I had to tell these people something.
Yeah.
And then these people signed up and I was like, oh my God, people are signing up for this. I got to write stuff. And so I was like, I got to write to them and then I got to write on this book. I can't just like tell them I wrote 2 sentences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I started thinking about, okay, every month I want to write a chapter. And so that's what I wind up doing. And it was me. It wasn't no AI assisted tool. It was me who wrote every single word. And every month I basically got myself to a place where I was like, okay, I have a chapter done. That means I can now write to this group of people that I don't know that signed up in order to hear what this journey is like. And then I would get a little bit of reinforcement from that community that said, you're encouraging me to finish my book. You're encouraging me to even think about writing a book. And so then I said, procrastination is what we do. So I did everything I could to think of, like, this is how I'm going to stop myself from procrastinating, is I have to somehow have a goal. And that goal was not to write goggly goop to a bunch of people on the interwebs. That was terrifying to me. So
now tell us all about your book, first of all. So give us the rundown.
The rundown of the book, it is Data Conscience, or Data Con Science, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Algorithmic Siege on Our Humanity. It is separated into 3 parts to really talk about the data infrastructure and how it is the root of all of what we're talking about today. How data fuels the algorithms that's making the tech.
Okay.
So I talk through it in 3 different segments. The first segment is transparency, and that is being very transparent about the digital infrastructure before we had the internet. So I talk about the social and the economic, the political, the laws, the issues that happened in just telecommunications beforehand, and how computational thinking we need to rethink because it's not really done well in practice. So that's being very transparent about where tech is on the spectrum. It's at the end of the spectrum, not the beginning. Okay. Then I talk through accountability, which is the accountability of what's happening in our data pipeline, how we as humans, our physicality is divided up inside of the digital and inside of the data pipeline, and what we can do in order to mitigate the inequities and the disparities. So I go through, that's the second part of the book. And then the last part is governance. And governance is all about what are some of the policies that have been enacted or tried to be enacted in order to help us, in order to help regulate what's happening online. So I talk through content moderation, some data privacy concerns. And then at the very end, the very last chapter is really my manifesto, where I talk about what we could do. We could start to treat companies much more like people and put them in little timeout boxes. And what does data civics really look like, in my view, and how we center the data experience around the people, our home, our workplace, our communities, and then our whole society.
Now, what was your process for publishing your book? Did you go the route of a publisher? Did you self-publish? What was that like?
Yeah, I went with the publisher. It was the second publisher. The first publisher dropped me because it wasn't my voice and they wanted something else. The second publisher was much more forgiving, much more excited about me just saying the things. They were fine with me saying things like white supremacy.
Okay.
Right? And fine with me saying, you know what, there's not a checklist to ethics and responsible AI. So they allowed me the time in order to write whatever I wanted to write. I was able to update my table of contents, I think twice during the process as I was working through what I wanted to say, because it took a while. It took about 3 chapters for me to figure out what my voice was and what this book was going to be about, because I was just writing to write and I didn't really know where I was going and what my end game was. And then once I wrote the first 3 chapters or so, then I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want at the very end of the day. And then I was writing to that goal, and then every chapter build upon that. So the publisher just gave me the space and time in order to do it, and of course in advance in order to write the book, and then editing. Editing, that's a whole separate conversation. We could have a whole nother hour just on editing. Lord.
Now, we've talked about taking tenure.
Yep.
Moving to a new institution.
Yep.
Closing your meeting, because it was your meeting, and then launching the summit and the company and the book. What's been the most impactful moment for you throughout this journey?
The most impactful moment, I think, was October the 1st, 2022, when I was delivering the keynote to my own conference.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an idea about 2 years before that. And to be standing there with people in the audience and people online, right? Had nearly 180 people.
Awesome.
Between the two, had, 8 sponsors, had, 5 or 6 community partners. It was paid for. Yeah. I was able to pay for it because of sponsors, because of ticket sales, because.
Yeah.
Standing there and to deliver that keynote, I was just like, y'all. And I said it in my keynote. I was like, y'all, this is blowing my mind that I did this.
Now, if you could go back and give your first year doctoral student self, either a piece of advice or a warning, what would you say to her?
Oh my God. First off, I would give her a hug.
She probably needs it. First year, she needed it.
She needs it. She needs it so bad. Needs it. And then probably a drink. And then I would say everything's going to be okay. Everything that's coming is supposed to come in the way it's supposed to come.
Yeah.
And so you're going to worry because that's your nature. But please know in the pit of your stomach that everything will turn out exactly the way it's supposed to. You're not making any wrong moves. I wouldn't try to guide my journey any other way. I think, no, you can't, because the decisions I made was because of the brain maturity that I had at the time.
Right.
And the 21-year-old me could not take the words coming out of the so me. Well, I'm not saying my age. Y'all can do the math. Y'all can math. Got smart people listening to this. Y'all can math. Y'all know how old I am. Dang, y'all know. Couldn't take it because she was not ready for this version of Brandeis.
Now, what advice would you give to your peers, so other tenure track faculty that are considering taking the leap outside of academia?
Oh, I have lots of advice.
Oh,
my advice would be, number one, it's about the money.
Okay.
The publications are good. Yes, do the publication. You can do that with other people. That's not a hard lift, really, because you know how to publish. Because you got a PhD. You have a publication, which is your dissertation. So you know how to publish. The real question that you need to ask is about how to get, how to manage, and how to get more of the money.
Okay, but now people have a hard time talking about money, and they don't want to make everything they do about money. So how do you reconcile that?
You need to pay your bills.
That is, these are the facts.
I say you go and you look up a person that you admire and you see how much they're getting paid. And a lot of places that are public institutions, you can see what their base salary is. And you can also see what they're earning on top of their base salary if they have a secondary position. And then you come back and ask me a question about money. They tend to be men. They tend to be of a certain age. They are making money.
Yeah.
They might not say the word money like I say the word money, but they're asking about compensation. They're asking about their roles and their duties. They're asking about, well, what's my cut of this particular project? How am I going to support my students? That's another way of saying money. How am I going to support summer activities?
Got it.
Another way of saying money.
Got it.
But you need to understand that in order to make sure that you're able to produce the level that you want to produce, you're going to need the financial and the administrative support. And that needs to happen based upon some green.
Got it.
Period.
Yeah.
You can't do all the research experiments yourself. Your students are eventually going to graduate, so you're going to need to get more. You're going to need to recruit. You're going to need to coach. You're going to need to mentor. You're going to need to research advise. You also need to write letters of recommendation. How are you going to be able to do all these things as an academic if you don't have the funds?
Right.
So how are you attracting students? If you get a grant, who is managing that grant? How do you know the management of the grant is going well? How are you getting payments out? I mean, there's a lot of money, the questions around the money when it comes to grants, which again, I think I should just do a masterclass on, because money, you need to understand how much money a graduate student costs you in a grant. How much of the grant do you actually get? You in your pocket. Because a $1 million award, you probably only going to get, you have a cap or whatever 20% of your salary is at most institutions.
Okay.
So your summer salary is at most 2 months. So that's 8 weeks. Y'all do the math.
Got it. And those are the things that, people don't talk about that. They don't talk about that at all when it comes to, managing a grant. Well, one, landing a grant, then managing it, and then being confident and comfortable in making sure that you can support the people and staff that you need to support in order to accomplish your work. So,
yeah.
Wow.
And also typically as Black people, we tend to get the other duties as assigned roles. Need to ask for compensation on that. If you are tapped to be an assistant dean or something, what is the compensation? Do you get a course release? Do you get an extra check? Is that a 12-month appointment if you become college leadership, or is it a as still a 9-month or 10-month appointment as faculty, because there were expectations when I became chair that it was like 12 months. I was like, I'm not being paid 12 months.
Yeah.
Y'all better stop. I'm not coming in to get the mail. What you talking about? She's going to stay right there until the admin comes back and gets it. No, y'all crazy. You want to call me in July? You better. I don't know who you talking to. You ain't talking to me. That ain't me. Nope.
Yeah. No, this has been such a great conversation, and I've learned a lot. And I'm going to make sure I follow up with you offline.
You want all the tea?
I want to find out what's going on. Like, I know a little bit, but I don't know enough. But tell me, how can our audience get in contact with you? Where can they follow you online if they want to buy your book or join your community, or just to, just to learn from you?
Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place now. And my book is available where all books are sold. You can get it at Bookshop. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at Wiley, who is the publisher. As far as following my writings, I'm on Medium, so you can follow me on Medium. I also have a newsletter called Rebel Tech Newsletter. So you can go to my website, brandeismarshall.com, and you'll be able to sign up there for my newsletter, even see some of the newsletters. So you get to see what the little flavor that I bring. But yeah, that's how you can get in touch with me. Hey, I'm on the socials, just not the Bird App Room.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been amazing. And also thank you to our audience for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel and share this video with a PhD that you love.